last time anyone speaks your name, that's the real death. Today's guest, Ron Franscell, said that near the end of our conversation, closing the door neither of us expected to walk through. This episode isn't just about writing or journalism or his new book. It's about fear. The kind you feel on a movie set, the kind you feel in mop gear with an M60 firing over your head. It's about the characters we create, the ones we carry. It's about the manuscript he trusted me with before the world sees it. It's about lineage, his and mine, and the ones we're trying to leave behind. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I realized something. Unless my nephew has a son, the Pedraza line ends with me. But maybe one day my nieces and nephews, or their kids, will search their ancestors and find my voice, not on a cassette, in the cloud. Ron said you have to believe storytelling has value to humankind. And if anything we say today inspires someone to pick up a pen, then we've done our jobs. This is Green Chili Chisme. Welcome to Green Chili Chisme. Welcome to the show. And so let's kick it off with this question here. Tell me about your parents and the house you grew up in, and if you remember your grandparents.
I do remember my grandparents. They were very important, and on both sides, both my mother and my father's side. They were colorful people, had robust personalities. My father's father was an Italian immigrant.
Oh.
Came over here at 15 years old with $25 in his pocket, and wanted nothing more than to be an American.
Mm-hmm.
So he changed his name from Giuseppe Pietro Franscella to Joseph Peter Franscell, because it was all those vowels that in his mind, marked him as being not American.
Yes.
And he taught me how to fish. And
wow.
He was this wonderful. I found recently, within the last couple of years, a audio cassette tape that I made of a conversation I had with him in around 1983.
Wow.
And it was kind of an interview, and because he was getting up there, it was kind of done. Here I was, this young journalist, and I did it in order to capture his story.
Sure.
But also captured, now that I look back at it, listen to it again, what I captured more importantly was the sound of his voice.
My gosh.
And this rich Italian accent, and but he was very influential. Taught me how to fish. Like I said, he was amazing. My other grandfather, my mother's father, was a farmer, and he was a sharecropper. And along comes the Depression, and he moves his family to the factories of Michigan,
right,
then to California, where he raises my mother. He and his wife, my grandmother, and they were salt of the earth people. He taught me to love baseball. He took me to my very first Major League Baseball team game. He taught me how to oil my glove. So
wow.
My grandparents were very influential in my life. My parents, when I was very, very young, we moved to Wyoming from Southern California, where my dad worked in a uranium mine. And grew up in this little town in Wyoming, which to this day I consider my hometown. But As far as the house, it was nondescript. In fact, I've been back to the house now, having decades later, and knocked on the door, and they let me go through. And like most of those kinds of memory places,
Uh-huh.
they are different size in your memory than they are in life. And that's the case in this.
It was a lot smaller than
The
you.
house where I grew up, and getting to walk through it was a privilege, of course, but it was startling in how small it was compared to my memory of what it was. So,
Compared to the size you were from your memory.
well, exactly. You know, we were we went to the sand lot where we played ball with the neighborhood kids. Is long gone now. It's built over. But before it was, and I don't know, maybe in my 30s at the time, I went back there. And again, a long ball to me as a little sandlot player wasn't that long. When, you know, when you go back as a 30
Oh my gosh.
person, you look and say, well, that one really wasn't that impressive. And that's a lot of, I think that's the memory plays, memory among other things actually plays that kind of a role in your life. It gives these places a lot of importance that we translate as being big. But then if we get a chance to see them again from a different, older, wiser perspective, they're not that physically big.
No.
They just are big in importance.
Well, again, in importance, but the eyes that you looked through and witnessed at that time were the size of the light switch. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I remember hearing something about, oh, what was I just gonna say? Gosh darn it, has something to do directly with that. About your perception of time as you grow older. How the summers now are so fast because when we were kids, you had nothing to do. Literally nothing but go out and play every day.
You're absolutely right about that. But think about it this way. It's kind of mathematic, which is weird for me because I'm not a mathematician.
Same here. I'm an English guy.
When you're 10 years old, 1 year is 1/10 of your life.
That's crazy.
And that's a long time. Well, when you're 50 years old, 1 year is 1/50th
of your life. Yeah.
Which is, at least mathematically, isn't as much.
Right. Yeah. It's a fragment.
Actually, it's 1 year, and it's 1 year no matter when it happens. But in your perception, you're considering 1/50th of your life as an older person versus a 10-year-old seeing 1/10. So I think, yeah, the time doesn't seem to pass as quickly then as it does now. Another thing that I've noticed, I've traveled the world. I was a war correspondent for the Denver Post. I've been all over the country with various stories and travels. I've found that places that are big in my perception and my memory, let's say Dealey Plaza, where JF was killed. Let's say the Alamo. Let's say Ford Theater. Places that in younger mind must be huge because huge events happen there.
Right.
And then you go back in your 30s or 40s or 50s and you realize you're not that big.
Yeah.
The Alamo is a great example of that. I was thinking, oh, it had to be 5 times bigger than it really is. But it's very compact, it's very intimate, and it challenges your memories and perceptions from your youth. Dealey Plaza was a huge. The only place I've ever been that I can honestly say that the place looked as big as I imagined were the pyramids in Egypt. They really were big. But I found that many other places are far smaller and more intimate than what I imagined.
I guess for me that would be when I lived in Europe, in Germany, in the military. It would be I was there when the wall came down. So the wall for me is just as big as it was when you look back on it now. Yeah, that was a pretty big. And it's crazy when you look back at our lives, you being a war correspondent and me being in the military, the things that, I've talked about a few of them on the show, the nuclear drawdown, I was a nuclear biological chemical warfare specialist. So, we were doing stupid stuff like rolling underneath a helicopter carrying a missile for freaking support. What are we going to support? Anyways, and then the war. I was in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and
my time was after 9/11. I was working. I was covering the American West for the Denver Post, and my job was not. It was not to do it the old way. We were trying to develop a kind of storytelling where we were looking for places in the American West where the past, the present, and the future intersect.
Nice.
And then tell a story about it.
Yeah.
Not just a newspaper type story, but not make a story either, but to find a story to tell that illustrated that. Well, 9/11, I was in Santa Fe as a matter of fact, on my way to an interview in Arizona. The morning came apart for me, just like it came apart for you and everybody else. And really, 5 days after 9/11, first day that air traffic was allowed again, I and a photographer were on a plane to the Middle East where we had basically tell stories from the Middle East in as many Arab and Muslim countries as you could get.
It's amazing.
This is sort of answering all the questions that you and everybody else was asking at that time.
Yeah.
Why did you do this? Why us? What did we do to you? And to try to bring some of that back to an American audience from the Arab and Muslim street. So while I embedded with American units occasionally in there, like the USS Prize and others, when I say war correspondent, I was I don't say never, I was very seldom in a fire zone, combat area, anything like that. And I was never truly in any danger, but I was covering the run-up to the war on terror.
Right. What was crazy before the ground war started for us, we were put in these. There were supposed to have been Bedouin housing across from the airport that they were flying sorties out of, and Saddam was just constantly lobbing missiles at us and freaking trying, and it was, we were right across the highway from the place that they were trying to hit.
Right.
Prime right in the zone. It was insane. Yeah, there was one moment that I remember. This is all pre-ground war. We were like on the 18th floor, and each building had a duty, even though we had radios, that if there was a Scud launch, we would have to notify. Building A would have to notify until 0600, and then build so on and so forth. And my turn ended up having to pop up when they did a Scud launch, and by the time you get down 17 flights of stairs, and I'm in probably like mop 2, I'm probably mop 2 at this point, maybe mop 3. When I landed onto the ground and started going to another building, The Scuds, I mean, the Patriots were launching from just across the freaking highway. And, I'm in an ADA unit on top of that, so I know these directions and stuff. And so it started already when it launched. It didn't go up. It went at like a 45-degree angle already, which means that sucker was already coming down. And so
Right. Right.
it's seemingly like it was right above our head, and I was like, well, everybody is now informed. And I turned around and went in full mob gear and mask. And by the time I got back to the top of the 17 stories, there was my buddy was like, dude, you're white as a ghost, man. And I'm pretty dark,
Yeah.
so I was really dark out there, and so being white as a ghost was like for real.
Yeah, I bet.
But that was minor, but before the ground war started. Anyways, let's get back. So, man, before your writing career, it's so easy to talk to another writer, and I'm so fascinated by your memories because I use my childhood memories in my stories all the time. Let me ask you this: though, what was school like for you? Elementary to junior high, what was that like for you?
Um, I was a kind of reserved kid, maybe introverted. I was the kind of kid who kind of navigated the circumference of any group until I could find a place to fit in, where something I could do, something that I felt confident about. It wasn't that I disliked people. It was just that I just I was always looking for my opportunity to fit in, and I wanted to do something that I could do, and that happened junior high, grade school, junior high. Again, it's a very small town. Um, by the time I got to high school, I really hadn't changed, but I had sort of gravitated toward some things. The school paper.
I was just going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Playing football, playing some sports, but the school paper. I was the editor of my high school paper. In fact, a friend of mine and I started our junior high school paper, which still exists today, the 56 years later. So I never saw myself at that time as necessarily being a journalist or making a career of this. This was just a very cool, extracurricular activity.
Sure.
It didn't speak to career me, right? I wanted to do something else. But into college, by the time I got into college and had a couple of starts, I came around to thinking, hey, I can make money in this journalism thing. And I can write every day, I can tell stories, I can do the things that I've really kind of done well, and get paid.
And get paid.
And that's really kind of how it started. And, about halfway through college that I decided, maybe journalism is a thing.
That is so amazing.
And of course, that's what I did for most of my career. I ultimately a senior writer at the Denver Post, doing a really cool new kind of journalism. And it was during that time I wrote a couple of novels. And we did, one especially did well. It was named one of the 100 best novels of the 20th century West by the San Francisco Chronicle.
Nice.
And I kind of thought I might go in that direction. But it was that war coverage that I was talking about. And I'm coming back, and an experience coming back. We don't have to get to it to take up time, but um, kind of led me to want to tell a story, a true story about a time when I was young. I was a younger boy, young teenager, when the two girls that lived next door to me were abducted by a couple of local thugs. They were terrorized through the night. One of them was raped. They were both ultimately thrown off a very high bridge
Oh my
into a
gosh.
very deep. One died and one lived, and that's kind of where the story begins, because it's in her second life that I think the most touching elements of that story happened. So I wrote that book. It became The Darkest Night, which became a huge international bestseller, and suddenly people wanted me to write more true crime. Uh, I did. I continued to work in journalism, but after about 10 years of that, I decided to try to write full time, and largely those were true crime books. A couple bestsellers in there, and that dream that I initially had of being a novel fiction storyteller kind of went by the wayside.
Huh.
And because you talk to my agent and editors, they're all in the same mindset that you've got this market in true crime. Why would you want to do something else?
It's your niche.
From a filmmaker's perspective, you've got Robin Williams. You want funny. You don't want tragic. Now, the fact that Robin Williams wanted to do
And
dramatic,
did it very, very well.
he couldn't do that until he had proven himself and he could tell them to take a hike
Yep.
or else.
Yep.
And it was it was sort of, I reached maybe that point where I could. I just did. And it took COVID to kind of force my hand and say, well, you can't go out and do all of the research that marks your writing.
Yep.
You can't go to courthouses are closed, libraries are closed. There's no interviewing people face to face. Just putting gas in your car, you couldn't do it. So I wrote a mystery. Now, to me, it was taking everything I knew about crime writing and giving it a fictional story. And what came out of that was a book called Death Row. The book we're talking about today is the sequel to Death Row.
To that one.
But it all rises out of that same cauldron, right? Of a lot of research and a lot of authentic events and people that just get a fictional twist.
I totally get it. It's so crazy how the writing thing comes upon us. For me, I was I was in San Antonio, so my high school graduating class was probably closer to 500. So that junior high was probably half of that, if not maybe a little bit more. And I didn't have the greatest childhood growing up, but I had a teacher who saw that and did everything she could to occupy my time.
Yeah.
Well, even before that,
they're important in all of our stories. If we could do a poll of the writers we know,
oh my gosh,
they talk about teachers from their past who encouraged them to have the courage to write, take the risks that writing involved, who handed them books. Said, read this book, I think you'll like it.
yep.
All writers are, at their base, are readers.
Oh, for sure.
but somebody made them think that reading is valuable.
Yeah.
It's a team.
What was crazy is, maybe 15 years ago, my elementary school teacher got a hold of me through Facebook, and we reconnected. And she was she was is all about. I knew you're different. I knew that you were going to do something special. Da, da, da. And here's the proof. And she sent me, which I did not have, our third grade graduating picture, the bleachers one, and I'm on the top bleacher, and the whole class, probably about 50 students, maybe a little less than that, are facing forward, and I am just cocked full left, and that's the way they took the picture. And she said, I knew from that picture that you were going to be something. But it wasn't until middle school, that teacher in middle school who put me in drama, who put me in the camera club, who put me on the yearbook club, who put me on the newspaper, and little did I know that I got to back up one more here. So I really think that this is something that's been in me since I was a child. When I was about 5 or 6, I was watching Star Trek reruns in San Antonio as a child, and evidently I did this 3 or 4 page crayon script, and I somehow got it into the mail to Ken's TV, and lo and behold, the general manager wrote back. And my parents were like, why is Ken's TV writing my son, because they had no idea that, and anyways. And so it was basically, and I paraphrase the letter, I don't remember, but it was basically, the show has been out of circulation for a number of years, and you're watching reruns, and but the bottom line was, don't stop writing. That's what his bottom line was, don't stop writing. I'm about to cry, man. A general manager, probably a man our age, got that letter, a crayon script, and took the time to type a letter back and sign it. Type a letter back.
Well, and in that particular case, he fulfilled the role of the teacher that was so important to the rest of us.
Yep.
But yes, we've had these mentors, and in fact, it's just part of every story we tell.
It is.
That there are mentors who guard the path for the hero, who make it safe for him to go forward, who give him confidence to go forward.
Wow.
Encourage him to take risks. They're in every story we tell.
The unit that I went to...
And I believe that's fiction and non-fiction.
Exactly.
They're there. You just need to know what to look for. But in my particular case, and on so many that I know, teachers played that role, and they identified, in my case, me, but others, very early, that you had something that if you work on it,
yep,
you could make it into something. And I did. I had a teacher in 7th grade who literally sat me down, sit there, and said, "You're good at this."
Yeah.
And I think you should continue to try these things. By the time I was in high school, I had written a novel. It probably wasn't that good. My recollection was, from my perspective today.
Yeah, exactly.
Wasn't that good. But do you know any high school kids that wrote novels?
No,
I didn't.
That's what I'm saying.
I
no. That's amazing.
And I wish I had it so that I could use it as a kind of sobering technique that when I was feeling cocky, when I was feeling big.
Yeah, read this.
Read the novel you wrote.
Well, for me, it's like fate had to keep kicking me. So when I was in the military, and it ended up being the unit that I went to war with, which was the last unit I was in the military in, Before we went to war, I had changed my job to administration. I was in the first class to put computers into the military, into the army. So I was like in the very first SIDPERS classes. So after I took that class as an NCO, I went out and had to administer it into battalions, and bring it into the battalions. So anyways, the unit I ended up being in, I was working in the staff. So he was like, "Do you want to do a newsletter?" And I was like, "Okay." So I ended up doing a battalion newsletter. It went out to 770 people. And so then the war happened. I went to school. I went to UTSA. And one day, in lunch, I got the paisano, and I ended up in the sports section, and it was just a huge 3/4 picture of a volleyball play, and a little quarter write-up about the game or the picture, and that was the sports section. And I honestly said, I can do better than this. And got up and walked into the paisano and told them I want to write sports. And of course they were like, yay, because it was a girl who was just like the A&E girl who had to do it because somebody had to do it. But within less than a month, I was a sports editor. I had a reporter under me. I had my own column, and it was I was interviewing huge people. My biggest probably cat was Ernie Ladd. You remember? I don't know if you know the name Ernie Ladd. Ernie Big Cat Ladd, football player turned wrestler.
The name rings a bell.
He was a football player for the Houston Oilers for a long time, and then turned wrestler. That was my biggest interview. Yeah, it was.
Well, and what you're describing, I think, is commonly true. We worked hard. We were encouraged by these mentors that we had along the way. We worked hard. We made a lot of mistakes. But something lucky happens. Something magical happens. And suddenly you're finding yourself in the right place at the right time. Because everything you've learned up to that point about telling a story effectively to people, you've internalized, and what you lack was the opportunity, the story itself, a place to sit. There are a variety of things that have to come together to get to the point of being what you are now, making films, to doing podcasts, to doing all the storytelling you do, kinds of storytelling that I have done. I hate like hell to admit it, that all that hard work, all that commitment, all that passion that you pour into it still sometimes comes down to a lucky break.
Sure.
Something happens that lets you put to work all of those things you've learned. And that's, I think that's part of one of the things of being human that is serendipitous.
It's amazing, and now screenwriting is my thing, and my first novel was a historical fiction. 10 years of research, 2 years to write it. It's called the Solomon Chronicles, and it's basically the last living or the last living blood of King Solomon in the time of King Ferdinand and Isabel. And this is an altered version of how they became the Catholic king and queen of the world, And basically, I ended up finding my family history within that.
That's interesting.
And a huge family history. My 8th great grandfather was the first surgeon of the New World. The first surgeon of the New World. We're from Gomera, Spain, La Gomera, in the Canary Islands, he was on one of Hernan Cortez's missions when there was no hospital. The first hospital of the New World is in Mexico City, It's still there. It's still active, and it's called the Hospital of Jesus. And my ancestor founded it. It's insane. So that turned into all these other screenplays before that. But I finally said, why am I not writing about this man? And so a few years back, that screenplay came out as a television series that is in serious consideration with a big wheeler dealer right now. But it's won best television series script for the last 3 years in multiple film festivals around the world. The biggest one being in Barcelona. I won that one. And if you win a story like that in there, you got something that's really anyway. So,
but I think what your instinct about story is good, and you realize that you had a good story in your past. For me, it wasn't something that came out of my past as much as just my experience, and just realizing that telling stories about people in their in moments like war or crime, that you're really telling stories about people at their best and at their worst.
Exactly.
This is the worst moment of their life, but maybe they're going to summon up some quality that lets them survive it.
Yeah.
And I've never been very interested in serial killers and killers at all, except as the gas in the engine that makes something happen. They set
something else in motion.
Yeah. That a normal person like you and me has to deal with.
Yeah.
That you and I get up in the morning, we do not expect to cross paths with a killer.
Yeah.
The cop, you don't necessarily expect to cross paths with a killer. So in the true crime stories, I've tried to concentrate on that element because I think that's what readers don't identify with serial killers.
Right, of course.
They might find them fascinating or something, I don't know. But
they identify with the heroine of it.
Look at this person and say, how did he react?
Yeah.
And how would I react? How would I save myself? And so it's that experience that you're saying, I want to convert that war experience and that experience of being a young kid whose friends next door were murdered, raped, and give it, when I tell the story, give it some of that feeling that I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Give it some of that kind of difficult texture that we feel when we think about our great grandfathers or my friends, and that's been a big part of my storytelling is trying to tell the story. Oddly, not everybody does. Some people just put together strings of facts
and words. I was just gonna say that.
Here's a book.
Here's a book.
Didn't tell me what happened. You didn't make me feel for that main character.
My biggest.
Again, I'm not talking about fiction or non-fiction.
Exactly.
The same, no matter what. Stories are stories.
My biggest thing in my writing is no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. You know,
right.
If you're not emotional killing this person, then why would the reader be emotional reading about it? Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, the only, and I'm not a big serial killer story want to do either, but the only one that's been knocking around in my head for a long while is a female serial killer story. Somehow that something about that is been knocking in my head for years. It's different.
Well, and I think we saw with Breaking Bad, with The Sopranos, with Peaky Blinders, the anti-hero hero,
Mm-hmm.
where we have somebody like Walter White or Jesse Pinkman or Tony Soprano or Tom Shelby that we're rooting for, but they're really bad guys. They're not the kinds of people we would normally root for. It's just that they're bad guys and their enemies are worse. So
Yeah.
it's possible. It's possible to take the female serial killer or Walter White and portray them with depth and with character.
I think in limited research, there was one in the 1800s, a lady who owned a boarding house. I think I don't remember how it started, but women who were abused ended up coming to her to help them, and she would take care of it somehow. And I don't remember the whole story, but something like that would be interesting because it's the same exactly what you're saying. It's like, of course, this man's beating the heck out of his wife. This lady's gonna help the wife.
Yeah, that's the Dexter issue, isn't? I don't know Dexter.
I know the name.
I saw enough of it to know it's a serial killer who kills serial killers.
Oh, okay. Right. Whoa, that's out there.
So that's a very complex character.
Yeah.
And it made for a good talkable series.
Wow, serial killer who kills serial killers.
It's possible to take bad people and make a reader care about them.
Yeah.
We've seen it. We know that's possible.
Yeah.
But it sort of challenges the human tendency to say you're a bad person or you're a good person.
Yeah.
And complexity doesn't really enter into it.
Right.
John Wilkes Booth is a bad guy. Abraham Lincoln is a good guy. But could we tell a story where fictional John Wilkes Booth had a reason for doing something terrible that he did?
Yeah.
And that Abraham Lincoln wasn't exactly what we today think he was. Yes, it's possible. It's not the story I want to write, but you've got to embrace that complexity.
Sure.
And then you've got the challenge of getting readers to embrace that complexity and not dismiss it and say no, this is a bad person and I'm not going to root for him. So I like that challenge, and I see people doing it very well.
Yeah.
Hannibal Lecter to a certain degree.
Exactly.
A comforting sort of teacher character as a mentor to Clarice Starling.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just saw an interview with her, and she was talking about that film. She said she was terrified half the time that she was in those scenes with him because he didn't talk to her. He did not talk to her at all. He was in character the whole time, and she was terrified, which I would probably be too. Let me ask you this. So to me, film and in my writing, music plays a big role in my writing, my feelings, films, writing. Who are some of your early music heroes, and is music important in what you do?
Is it important to what I do? That's an interesting question, because if we're talking about writing, it would be a distraction if I were writing and there's music. However, that in Deep End, the new book that's coming in May, I took it's a book where an old cold case from 1970, based on a true story that happened here.
Well, I don't know if this is kind of weird with you not being able to see me, but we were talking about music. Let me see if this
Yeah.
thing's even recording
Well,
here.
and I was telling the story. This story, deep end, is the crime at its heart is based on a real crime that happened here in New Mexico, a real double murder that happened on a hippie commune of all places
That's
in
crazy.
1970. And I tell that story uh, almost right down the line. I use some of the same names, some of the same details. Um, what I did in the book, though, was I hid little lyrics from music from that period, from 68 to 72, throughout.
Nice.
So, so somebody reading the book might find little things that sound familiar, and it's because music influenced that period. And if I look at that period for me, I'm 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. So
Exactly.
music is huge. You know how important music was when you're that age. And it was great music. It was classic rock music that to this day is what I listen
Yep.
to. If I have a choice, that's what I want to listen to. And so, I'm typical. My parents didn't think that it was healthy to listen to the Rolling Stones and things like that. Uh, Typical stuff for that period. But yeah, I'm classic rock is my jam.
It's so funny. In the military, I learned how to play drums. I self-taught when I was at Fort Ben Harrison. But more recently, when I started my company, my co-founder of the company was Michael Guerra, who was a member of the Tornadoes and a member of the Mavericks, and so he's a musician. He was the music side of our company. I was the film side of our
Mm-hmm.
company, and it wasn't until he got really good at writing songs. He wasn't really good at writing lyrics. He could compose, and so he got good. He got better at writing songs, and so I had to pick up the guitar. And so now I play guitar. I'm about an intermediate player. I've been playing about 6 or 7 years now, but I'm now playing all those songs that we grew up with. And
Yeah,
the difference is, and I just had a music teacher on not too long ago, a good friend of mine, Skunk Manhattan. He's from Austin as well. But the thing is, I learned in reverse. I know those songs like the back of my hand. Like the songs that are your favorite songs. You know every lick. You know where the bends are. You know where everything is. I
exactly,
just didn't know
exactly.
how to play guitar, number one, and the notes, number two. And so now I can look and follow along, and now that I know the notes, and it is so emotional. It's so
Oh yeah.
emotional to be able to play these songs that we grew up with and love.
Well,
Um,
and I can't play music. I wish I could, but I can't. Um, but there's no question whatsoever that music plays a huge role in how our emotions play out
yeah,
with stories, particularly visual stories
yeah,
like movies, TV. But um, but I think even in our written stories, John F. Scott Fitzgerald
sure.
talked about how he wanted to capture the sounds of the jazz age in his writing, and people can read Fitzgerald and determine for themselves whether he does or not. But I think he did.
Yeah,
Uh, but there's a reason why he wanted to capture the sound of his time
because it puts you
in his
there.
writing. because of the power of music.
It puts you there. It helps to put you into his story, into whatever he's trying to tell you, into whatever you're trying to
Sure.
tell your audience. Yeah, so it's music in film. And in film, what was cool about our company is we were making films and we were doing the music for our films and we were doing the writing. You know what I'm saying? We were doing the whole thing, and we were
Right.
nobody's doing
Right.
this stuff. And so all this learning that we've done and I've done up to now, and this podcast especially has given me a clear focus and a clear vision for the rest of my life, because I'm in my 60s now too, so my 7 to 10 year plan is like a long you know what I mean. So yeah, I think what's coming up for us, and you being a part of it, you're a part of it, by being on this podcast, and the reaction that we've gotten from the people have been, it's been fantastic. And so let me ask you this: when you're writing a story, and I hate killing off my people, but when do you know that it's done? When to you is that story finished?
Um, that's a gut level
Yeah,
thing, I think, um, and I'm not sure I can explain it to the satisfaction of everybody who's listening. But I also can say, because I came up through journalism, because I came up as
oh
that kid, that 12-year-old kid who founded the junior high paper, and then the war and the Post and everything that I've done journalistically. Um, there comes a time of day when your story is done,
yeah,
whether you want it to be done or not,
yeah,
because there's a deadline. And let's just say it's 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, that's how I know my story is done. It's five
it's 5 o'clock.
o'clock, right? So everything is toward making sure that you've told this story completely by 5 o'clock. When it comes to my book writing, obviously I don't have a moment in time that's the deadline. Well, not usually anyway. Um, uh, it's a gut level thing where you're assessing, have I included every message, every feeling that this story needs, and it's something, oddly enough, it's not a moment where I say, at say 3:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday, oh hey, I'm done.
Yeah,
you know, it's something that I know is coming, maybe for a couple of months, maybe for a few months,
yeah,
that I kind of know where this is going to end.
yeah,
And in some ways, I know, when I've written fiction, I know where I want it, and it's about how I get there,
right,
and how you create the world where that happens. So
right,
it's a good question that I can't answer for everybody, but it's a common question when I've taught at writing workshops and things like that. It comes up a lot. How do
yeah,
I know when I'm done?
yeah. It's
And I think it really comes down to knowing, you need to know what the story is you're telling. It
yeah,
doesn't go on and on. There's a purpose for the story. You need to identify that purpose, and then when you've achieved that purpose, you're done.
yeah. It's subjective in every writer, I think, but yeah, that's the bottom line. When it served the purpose of whatever you need to tell. Um, Was there a creative risk, or has there been a creative risk that you've taken, that changed everything for your life or for your career? What was it?
Um, just writing my very first book
Mm.
did that. Not just in terms of starting me down that path toward writing books, but a lot of writers have partners who aren't fully aboard, and that was my situation. At the time, my partner was my wife saw this writing as the book writing part as a nice little hobby thing that you did. Now you have to work. Now you have to do the other work.
Yeah.
And that led to consequences that are familiar to a lot of people. And it led to a change in that relationship and the end of it. Ultimately, writing changed my life in a way that you wouldn't expect in that case. But it also set me on that path. And it for a lot of writers, it starts with just taking the risk to write.
Yeah, you're right.
Because this isn't something you do for 5 minutes and you're done.
No,
it requires a lot more. So there's a risk in that. I think taking the risk to blend some of the tools from a novelist's toolbox with truth telling, with journalistic storytelling, where you're telling stories, whatever we were talking about earlier.
Yep.
You're telling completely true stories, journalistic stories, but you're doing it in a way that we're more likely to see with novels, where you have dialogue, where you have characters, where you have a central character that you have, you, the reader, have some affection for, or some interest in. I think character development, setting, details, bringing all those things into journalism took a little bit of risk.
Yeah.
Because even other journalists are going to say, you can't do that.
Exactly.
And I'm glad I did. And I still do to a certain degree in my nonfiction books.
Yeah.
All kinds of risks. In fact, I would say, as a writer, you're not going to be successful
unless you do.
If you don't take risks.
Yeah. My wife also and I went down that same path with my first novel. Because like I said, 10 years of research. We're talking, it's me staying up late at night by the fireplace doing research. Not her. She's in bed asleep, so what does it matter? Anyways. But yeah, that is the same thing. And so when that got published, it was redemption a little bit. And what's crazy, my first wife, we were both in the military together, and I've written a script about this, and it's actually won an award as well. But we were both in the military, and Desert Storm had come up, and I was already forward deployed in Germany, and she was at Fort Bragg, at an airborne unit in Fort Bragg. And all of a sudden I get this call, and we were already, we were getting ready to roll, and I get this call that they weren't going to let her go because we were married, and I was already forward deployed, and you can't have service members married in the same combat zone, even though we didn't have kids. And so we went through a lot of soul searching, but we agreed to divorce. Just so she could go, because I understood she wanted to go with the people that she trained with for the years that she trained with them, like I did. It ended up being that we saw each other more in the desert than we did when we were married in the Army.
but that's a story.
It's a huge
that
story.
belongs in film or in a book, in a TV series, because it has everything. It has characters we're going to care about, has a conflict, it moves forward. It tells how we humans, in our different ways, overcome obstacles.
Yeah. And so imagine the scene when we're at camp whatever kilo, and it's pre-war, and you're in the line for chicken and the line for PX, and you walk up and you see your wife talking standing there. Can you imagine that? You freaking,
Yeah.
oh my God. And then you run up and you do the whole look at each other and start kissing, and all these soldiers are around you going, what the hell is going on here? It was
Great
crazy.
scene. Great scene.
It was crazy. We had to run off to behind a building, behind a tent to talk. So yeah, we were both in the same job. So in her unit was, I think 18th Airborne Corps was right between us, and I was in 3rd Armored Division and her. So these meetings that we had to go to, I had to drive my S1. She had to drive her S1. And so we were at these same meetings all the time. So it was crazy, man. It was a fun thing. But the story itself it ends up being like you go through this man's life, and they met, and they have kids after the war and this and that. Well, at the end, the man has dementia, and it never happened. It's a story that he made up in his head because they had to get divorced, and they got divorced, and they never got back together. But in his mind, that's not what happened. And so at the end of the movie, you think you've been taken through this whole ride of these people's lives. You love them, their kids, you love everything about them, and then you find out that it was not real. It's
Right.
it's a pretty cool story. Anyways, so let's talk about this book coming up. What do you hope people feel when they close that cover, that last page, and go, "What the fuck"? Excuse my French.
Well, I first of all, I just want them to be entertained.
Yes.
This is a fiction book. I'm not trying to clobber anybody with any sermons or anything like that. I just want them to be entertained, and I want them to be challenged by the mystery. But there's a lot of character stuff going on in this book too. So I want them to give some thought about that. And of course, this is the sequel to a mystery that I wrote a couple years ago,
Right,
called Death Row. And it's employing some of the same many of the same characters, adding a few, new crime. So it's just an entertainment, but it's also about men growing old.
Yep.
And it's about these people whose best times are behind them, and they feel like they're just growing invisible. Nobody pays attention anymore. They don't have the same value in their community. They were the people who once upon a time did everything.
Yep.
Now they get together for coffee in the local diner and solve the world's problems, and grow slowly invisible.
Wow, that's so poetic.
They are drawn into solving these crimes, sometimes unwittingly. They don't consciously decide they're going to do something, but their skills come into play, and they help the main protagonist of the story, retired Denver homicide detective himself, get to the bottom of things. But they're all dealing with life too.
Yeah.
Spouses who are dying, or children who never call, having nothing to do and being bored, physical ailments. whatever it is, the older we get, there are more of them, and so they're dealing with that. And in the sense that a reader could look at them and know a little bit more about themselves, or about their father or mother or uncle or grandfather, whatever, then that's a plus. But I think that fiction, especially commercial fiction like a mystery or a romance, you have to be very careful about sermonizing,
Right.
And clobbering people over the head. You need to entertain them first.
Right.
And I think Deep End does that.
Yeah. I understand that. Like my first novel, it was a lot of religion in there. So that first opening chapter, I just plowed through it, hoping that the reader would be able to get through it in an entertaining way to get to the story that was in the next chapter. That's really where it started. But yeah, I totally understand. But it had to happen. It had to put the context of everything that happened. Anyways, but so is there something in your resume, your storied resume, that you wish that more people knew about?
What's that? The book?
Your books, your writings, any of your articles, your first, I don't know.
I'm one of a billion storytellers, and we're telling gazillion stories. Yeah, of course, I want to, when I write something down, when I tell a story that I think is important, whether it's a true story or a fictional story, I want people to be able to access it, of course. I want to be able to tell it in such a way that they're moved by it. Yeah, I mean, I like you. I want to tell stories in a variety of ways to tell a story in the form that will be most digestible.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a poem. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a song. Maybe it's a true story. Maybe it's a mystery.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a movie. But whatever it is, I want to be able to tell that story in the form that people are going to most easily digest it. And yeah, I mean, we go back to that idea of risk.
Yep.
It takes a certain amount of risk to say, I'm going to write this down and hand it to the world, whether
Yeah.
it's through social media or a hardback book or a song. I'm going to hand it to you, and you're going to express whether it's any good or not, or whether it made any sense, or whether it moved you. So that you're taking the risk that they're going to come back and say, well, that's a load of crap.
Yep. That's the best answer I've heard of all these people that I've been asked
I
that.
just think you need to get used to that. And especially in this world, this is fairly new, actually, where anybody's opinion for any reason can be shared with 10 million people.
Yep.
Instantly.
Instantly.
And they don't have to, those people with those opinions, they're entitled to those opinions, of course. They don't have to defend them. They could say it's a load of crap because I don't like bald white authors.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
So, that's the world we live in. So that risk that we were talking about earlier, it is an even bigger factor.
Yep. That's that's the best response I've had from all the people I've asked that question. I think that's the best. So let me close with this question here. When and did you realize the word legacy, and what does that word mean to you now?
Legacy, I don't know. Uh, I think early on when I wrote a book, when I had been in journalism for for at least a decade, I guess, 2 decades, yeah, 20 years. When I finally wrote a book, but for a few years before that, I'd been thinking it was important to write a book. That I thought that's what writers did, and I considered myself a writer, even though I was just a journalist
Right.
at that point. And I don't hold other journalists to the same standard. I don't say to my journalist colleagues, "You have to write a book or you're not real."
Yeah.
But for me, the way I looked at me, I said, if I want to feel real as a storyteller and as a writer, I have to write a book, and I did that. It was somewhere in that process that I began to think about. I didn't think of it in terms of legacy or as a word. I thought of it in terms of I'm writing a book. It's going to have my name on it,
Yeah.
and children of children that I will never know,
Yeah.
but who come from me, will be able to pick this up and say, "Hey, this was my great great grandfather," just like you and your great grandfather, or great multiple greats, with the surgery in the New World. You tell his story. You never met him. You
No.
don't. You know what the record says about him, but you don't know him, and that's I think the trade-off. And I addressed that a little bit. That idea in Deep End.
Yeah.
The idea that we die, and we're forgotten fairly quickly. I think for writers, we're extending our existence a little bit. Not
Yeah.
forever, maybe, unless you're a Hemingway or a Homer,
Exactly.
a Shakespeare. But you're extending it for a few more generations, where somebody can pick up your book or watch your movie or listen to your song and say, "That's my great great grandfather."
Yeah. And that's one of the big reasons also for this is unless my nephew has kids, which I'm not sure that he will or not, that's it for our line. Our line ends with us.
Yeah.
And so my eighth grade grandfather came in blazing with the history that he did, the first surgeon of the New World, da 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 da, and then my grandfather was actually a child conscript in Pancho Villa's Army of the North.
Wow.
So when he crossed over, when Villa attacked New Mexico, Columbus,
Yeah.
my grandfather was
Yeah.
15 in that raid, and
Wow.
on retreat he
Your family's first experience in New Mexico.
yeah. So think about my grandfather who has 15. He had already been in like 5 battles at 15. And then he booked left. He went west when they retreated, and he ended up in Arizona at a mine, working in a mine, whereupon the Army came looking for people. And he joined the Army Air Corps, didn't know English, lied about his age by 2 years, excuse me. And long story short, he retired Master Sergeant of the Army Air Force, excuse me.
Amazing. Amazing.
And his last job were at the Bombardier School. He was the post sergeant major at the Bombardier School in San Angelo, teaching them how to use the new scopes for World War II. Think about that.
That's amazing.
So yeah, it's I'm trying to make sure that our name is forever. So I've had 2 books, music, and an award-winning album, this podcast, and 8 films so far. More on the horizon.
Well, I think that you're probably aware of the Mexican tradition that we die twice.
Yep.
We die when our body gives up and we breathe our last breath the first time. The second time we die is the last time anybody speaks our name.
That's crazy.
And so the idea that you and I and other people are putting things out there, stories that will at least keep our names spoken a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And but not forever. Again,
No.
not unless you're a Shakespeare or a
Not
Homer
forever.
or something like that. It's not going to be forever. But maybe it's a few more generations. And I think that's the best we can hope for. And I think it's something worth hoping for.
If I can influence in the writing that you've done, if you could influence, or if I can influence in the things that I've done, somebody to take up a pen or a guitar and become one of us, then we've done our job.
Sure,
and
I think so. I think you have to believe in storytelling, that it has a value to humankind, right? And it takes a risk when ordinary people like you and like me decide we're going to share a story with the world, like it's something, like it's important,
right,
like we are important. And it takes a risk to do that.
Yep.
But it's believing in the human race.
Yep.
Is every bit of literature or every song or every movie really, should it make the human race proud? No. No, it doesn't. But there is something to be proud of in there. In film,
right,
in storytelling, in books, in songs. So speak them, you
Yep.
know, put them out there. I think it's important. I don't think I'm important.
Exactly.
Except just one of the army
of writers,
of guys doing it.
Of artists, yes. And that's the whole thing behind this show, is to celebrate these people who don't always get that spotlight, you know.
Right.
And
Exactly.
Geez, I've kept you long enough, and I just want to thank you for your time, Mr. Ron Franscell.
Certainly.
This actually episode is going to drop on the same day as your novel, May 5th, correct?
All right, May 5th, Deep End. It's out there.
Bookstores everywhere.
Pardon?
Bookstores everywhere.
Bookstores everywhere, in print, in ebook, in audio, wherever you buy books, it's there.
Well, I certainly appreciate your time, and hopefully one day we can meet up for lunch or something.
Yeah, we're close.
Yeah, we're close. And you have a great afternoon, Mr. Ron.
I will, and you too.
Appreciate your time.
All right.
Take care.
Be safe out there.
You too. Good luck on the book. Green Chili Chisme is a production of DB Media Entertainment, LLC. If you're digging the story, give us a like or pass it to a friend the way you used to pass the dish. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, pretty much anywhere you listen to this pod. Thanks for riding with us, supporting these voices, and keeping the chisme alive. We'll see you next time.